to the podcast, the Bikers of Africa podcast. If you would kindly introduce yourselves.
I'm Mark Worship, the president of the MAWC.
Okay.
Lawrence Jones, chairman of Swallows Flight Motorcycle Club.
Okay, and on what capacity are you guys here tonight?
I think we're wearing two hats at the same time, but first and foremost, we're here to speak on behalf of the councils. As you well know, tomorrow is the quarterly meeting, the SAMCA, South African National Bikers Council Alliance meeting, and with that, we've taken out the opportunity to also to come and spend some time here with you to discuss or to answer some of the questions that you might have relating to councils.
Okay, no, lovely. I think we'll get into a bit more details about who SAMCA is, and that who they are and what they represent, right? So I would like to first focus on MAWC. Of which I think you would be going into SAMCA wearing the hat of MAWC, if I'm not mistaken. So who is MAWC? Who is MAWC?
So the MAWC is the Motorcyclists Association of the Western Cape. Founded in 1994. Essentially, it was founded to organize events and biking calendars amongst bike clubs. And over the years, the mandate, as most things, started to grow from us now engaging with national government, with provincial governments as an MPO, and then taking the concerns and the fears of biking and the fraternity forward on a regional and a national level with all these political parties. I think not political parties, but essentially just organs of state, I would say that, yeah.
Okay, no, lovely. And you are the sitting chairman of MAWC.
That's correct, yeah.
All right. Is MAWC any different from any other biking association in the country? Is there anything that you guys, maybe your objectives are different, maybe some of the things that you've done and achieved way different, your outlook on biking in general? Is there anything that sets you apart?
Yeah, I think every council is unique in its own way because they have a different cultural space to work with, and every council has different challenges, which makes it unique. In the Western Cape, it's a very unique space in that I think from our so-called forefathers in biking have left a legacy of integration as a core focus of what we do. And I think that is one thing that a lot of the times the guys are really proud of, is the integration within biking. I don't really think there's a lot that we do different in a sense that it's better. It's more that it's just different. And each province and each space has its own culture. And this culture just works very well for the Western Cape.
I like the fact that you mentioned that, those that came before you managed to leave a template of sorts, because I think that's what a lot of clubs and councils are struggling with. And that's why we have so many issues that we have, because we have so many up and coming bikers, a lot of new guys who, in some way are kind of overshadowing some of the old guys, right? To a point where the voice of your old school bikers it's not heard that much, you know what I mean? And when the new guys come in, you find that, there is no template, there is no, a set of examples that has been set that they can follow. So I think it's such a great privilege, or blessing, whatever you want to call it, that has been left, for for the new generation of bikers that's coming out of the Western Cape, in my experience, I think there is a lot of different biking associations who've looked at the Western Cape, as an example of how to do things right, and I'm sure you can touch on that a little bit, Lawrence. What is it that you think that some of the councils in the country admire about how the Western Cape does, or their just overall approach to biking?
I think one of the key things, if a person had to look at it, through a magnifying glass or something like that, I would say that one of the things is that we've identified that as a council, that a lot of councils believe that the steering needs to come from the top down, whereas in the Western Cape we feel that the MAWC is the vehicle, but the steering actually comes from the floor, and the floor makes the decisions, and we are guided by the exec of the MAWC in terms of the directions that we want to go, but ultimately the exec is steered by the floor. So the floor has become very vocal in their demands, not really demands, but I would say in what they would like to take forward. And this also stems, as Marco said, that the MAWC or the council or the association, whatever you want to call it, doesn't just work for the affiliated clubs. And in Cape Town, we've become accustomed or where we found that we find that we can coexist, affiliated and non-affiliated, because it's steered through a process which we call the G2G, which happens every 3 months, where affiliated and non-affiliated get together to discuss the common interest of biking or the concerns in biking. And ultimately this is then driven back with the council. It's driven through the council meetings in the constituted meetings so that it can be minuted, because the MAWC is the only constituted body in the Western Cape.
Can you briefly explain what G2G stands for, and what is that? Just briefly, what is
okay,
G2G?
G2G is basically just the presidents get together. 2 members per club, president and most probably vice president, and it's more of a social evening. It's a platform that was created so that various clubs or different clubs can mingle. So most of 80% of the evening is spent on a bit of a social, and it's always important to be able to put a name to a face, or put a face to a name, whatever you want to call it. And I think with that, a lot of I think a lot of progress has been made, because when it comes to confrontation or conflict, you can relate to the person that you've identified. And it's so much easier when there is anything that is confrontation or conflict, that it can be avoided through discussions. Hence the reason why we would always encourage clubs to come to sit around the table within the councils, not only just to be a member or to represent the patch, but also to be part and parcel of the bigger or the collective biking. Because the Western Cape, even though we've got a mother body which is recognized as the MAWC, on a bigger scale, the Western Cape is driven by the collective biking, especially patch riders.
Okay, so the Western Cape is a very, very broad province. I mean, one can ride 400 kilometers straight and still be within the Western Cape, right? So does MAWC oversee that entire 400 kilometer radius, or are there other councils that you guys work with?
Look, ultimately, when the council was started, when the association was started back in 1994, I mean, obviously the planning went in way before that. It was only formalized in 1994. And the idea of the MAWC or the association was, number one, coming out of an era where apartheid played a big role. We had different cultures within the Western Cape, but in the biking itself, didn't have such a big impact, even in the time of apartheid, because there was clubs of the various cultures still socializing together behind the curtains, when they weren't supposed to. And in biking, people was various clubs or clubs was always accepted amongst. Or if you had a bike, or you were a biker, or you were a patch rider, obviously there's a passion that is shared by others. So people look past the color of your skin. There are those that still want to remain in that. But I think the biggest picture of that time was, first of all, to build and to uplift by uniting biking, across the board, like you said, with cultures and stuff like that. And I think with that, it made a big difference, And today we're more leaning towards new generation and old school, and finding that common ground on how to fuse, old school and new school, or new generation biking. And I think those are some of the challenges, because one would think with new school biking or new generation biking, that would be a challenge. But actually, your challenge sits with the old school bikers. Some of them have become complacent. Some of them have become too relaxed. Some of them see themselves as just another top and chop club, with no, they don't want to conform to structure. They feel to belong to a council or anything could mean that they would need to be ruled. And I think, for all those old school guys sitting at the back there, wanting to be completely different, the simple thing is that in today's times, we have to evolve with times. And the only way to do it is by joining hands, sitting around the tables, agreeing to disagree, but do it respectfully, with the desired outcome that you want, because collectively we can do a hell of a lot more.
Oh, awesome. Any input on that? Your experience there, Marco?
Yeah, I think Lawrence covered a lot. I think some of what I want to touch on as well is when we speak of a non-affiliated and affiliating, the MAWC's constitution and vision clearly stipulates the executive is there to serve and unite biking. That makes it makes no mention of affiliated or non-affiliated. I'll give you an example. We've got funds like the Buddy Fund. Any biker that comes off. Now, whether your club pays fees or not, if you're affiliated or not, we will pay you out a percentage or money towards your accident in the eventuality that you pass away. The fund will pay out affiliated or not affiliated. There's no discrepancy. We don't make chalk or cheese between individuals. We serve biking and we unite biking. We've got like road captains courses, which we open up to the entire biking fraternity, which is essentially funded by the MAWC and the member clubs. So all our member clubs have bought into the ideology from gentlemen like Lawrence before and others that biking can only be ruled by biking as a collective. Collectively, we identify a problem, road fatalities. How do we address that road fatality? We, as the biking fraternity, not the MAWC, like Lawrence explained, collectively the floor decides on how we're going to tackle the problem. And I think that's the one thing that sets us sometimes apart from other councils, is that collectively the decision is made. Affiliated, non-affiliated, and then we move in that direction, and the vehicle, as Lawrence said, is the MAWC. We're going to execute your wishes as a fraternity, and in such a way we build the fraternity and make the fraternity quite strong.
Okay. If you can elaborate more on the Buddy Fund, how did the Buddy Fund come about, and how are funds generated, for the Buddy Fund?
Okay, if I may. A good couple of years ago, we had a gentleman by the name of Buddy Dietman. He was the president of Satan Saints, and at the time of his passing, he was also president of the MAWC. So with his passing at Sedgefield on the day of the clubs, after that, it was decided that we're going to raise a fund to assist people in need. Because, it's sad that we think about it now, but I think at the time of Buddy's death, it was one of his times one of his lowest times in his life because, with unemployment, not having income, but yet still dedicating time to serve biking. You asked the question just now about, the Western Cape, you can do 400 kilometers. And how do we cope? And originally, if you look at back then, the idea was to start an association and then also to grow it by going through to the other provinces because the association was started, then it was the Boerland, then it was the Southwest District. Today we've got the West Coast, and then it even went a little bit further up to the Eastern Cape with the Club Leaders Association back then. And the idea was to grow it to such an extent that we could become a national body. Obviously today we call it SAMCA, but there was other names to it back before that. But the provinces didn't all work together. Each one was doing his own thing, but doing similar things. And I think through the years, what we wanted to do is instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, but rather work together to get it, to get more. To get a bigger buy-in from bikers around the country, and especially on council level. So, with councils and clubs, there's more structure, there's more accountability than individual riders. When you don't wear a patch, and somebody does something wrong, you don't know who the person is. When a person is in an accident, just by the patch that he's wearing, he's basically got an identity, he has a home, people can identify, they will know who it is, And yes, MAWC is an old council. And if you look at the other councils, obviously in smaller regions or smaller parts of the Western Cape, they run independently. With the council doesn't interfere with each other, although they on a dotted line they do give each other feedback. Or if there's a general issue that concerns everybody in the Western Cape, then obviously that information is filtered through via various forums and also through minutes of the various councils. And in some cases, in the MAWC meeting, you will also have representatives of those other various councils coming to those meetings, or especially into the G2G or the task team. Yeah.
I actually wanted to get a bit more clarity on various councils, right? Do they have a name of their own, or are they affiliated on the MAWC, but just running independently?
No, they all have their own names.
Okay.
Like Southwest District, which is your garden route, and then we've got the West Coast, which is you could say from Tableview, or let's just say Melkbosstrand,
Okay.
up onto the West Coast. That would be classified as the West Coast.
Okay.
And then we've also got the Helderberg area, which is not a council. They still run under the MAWC, but because of distance and the traveling conditions at night on the national roads to get to a meeting has become very dangerous. So I won't be surprised that maybe after in the next couple of years that people will start thinking or starting a council. Doesn't mean that it's councils that's got different ideas. We all run on the same idea. Our constitutions are all basically the same. Just from a traveling perspective, it makes it safer and sense and more. Our meeting starts at 8 o'clock at night, and if it's a big meeting with a lot of things to discuss, could usually come out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then people still have to do, let's just say, 100 to 200 kilometers that time of the night to get home. And with our current affairs, it's quite difficult and very dangerous. So, hence the reason why we're splitting it up into umbrella, sub-umbrella, but running independently.
I'm not too sure if I did ask this question, right? How do you ensure that the vision stays aligned? Because with division and sub councils and distance, people start to develop their own ideas and start doing their own thing. How do you ensure that the vision stays the same?
But so most of the districts, let's say Southwest District, their leaders are on our forums.
Okay.
Right. So on the task team forums,
Okay.
and they communicate regularly. And like Lauren said, I mean, these guys are on those groups.
Okay.
So there's an engagement on a daily basis of
Right.
what's happening there. They
Brilliant.
feedback, and in that way we keep the mindsets very similar. The same with the Helderberg guys. The same with the West Coast guys.
Okay.
They're all on the same groups, the same chats. We discuss the same issues. When the protocols get issues, the chats happen on the protocols on those groups first.
Okay.
And then it branches out so that everybody's clear that if there's an issue, we chat amongst ourselves first, and then that goes further. And it's I mean, Lawrence can attest it's worked brilliantly. We've never had conflict in between anyone.
Awesome. So would you say that even the issue of a club that doesn't want to follow protocol, that message gets easily disseminated, across forums, and 400 kilometers out, another council and clubs underneath that council would know that such and such a club doesn't want to follow protocol, and whatever measure that needs to be taken gets taken.
You see the idea of protocols. I mean, if you look at the stats and the historical events in the Western Cape, you would find that the Western Cape is a rather violent place, and full of gangsterism and stuff like that. And over the years, the guys have decided, we want to live free. It's our only place where we can actually lay our head down, relax a little bit, and enjoy what we're doing, enjoy the passion that we have. And therefore, it's important that we decided that instead of fighting amongst each other, to put our differences aside and to protect that little bit of freedom that we still have, which is biking. So with that being said, when it comes, a set of protocols was put in place. And it was put in place because we could see that further down the line, we're going to encounter problems, because we had two schools of thought. There was the old guys that wanted to do things the old way, and then we had a new generation of bikers that came along, wanting to do it their way. And in both cases, it wasn't necessarily wrong, but we found that the biggest problem that we encountered was a breakdown in communications. The old guys felt that the new guys were disrespectful. And the new guys said, look, it's not that we don't want to do it your way, but where is the guidelines? Who's told us how to do it? How, And when clubs were started mushrooming, I think it started most probably 2008, 2009 with the American influence of movies relating to biking, like Sons of Anarchy and all of those things. And people saw that, and they saw that, and they, in their own way, they identified with it, and they felt a sense of belonging to something. Hence the reason, I think in that period, that is when the clubs just started popping up all over the place. And with that, it brought its own set of problems, because, people coming from an old school biking, which we used to call like the dinosaur age, the bikes, pre-plastics, let's put it that way. Yeah. Today we can also call them like yesterday's heroes, you know what I mean, or those kind of things. But if you think about it, those guys felt, when we started the bike club, at those times, people didn't think of starting bikes. They joined existing clubs. Whereas with the new generation biking, everybody wants to start their own, wanted to start their own club, without trying to visit other clubs and getting into other clubs to see whether they could possibly fit in. So everybody felt that, the old, or let me not be unfair, a lot of people felt that they wanted to be presidents. They couldn't see themselves fitting into other clubs, because for some reason we all think that our own club is unique.
They don't want to be led.
Yeah, so we all feel that we're unique, but you find that people that start new clubs ultimately run away because they don't want to be ruled. They don't want the rules. But when they do form their own club and they want structure, automatically rules kicks in. So basically the same things that you ran away from is what you're going to try to instill. It's the only way that you, let's put it this way, it could be called organized chaos, let's put it that way.
So would you say that that's some of the toughest challenges that MAWC is facing? Is there anything that you can identify currently as something that you still need to overcome?
It's misconceptions.
Yeah.
I think Lawrence touched on it early on. It's perceptions and misconceptions is a killer. There's an ideology that is put out that there is control, that the associations want to control biking and nobody wants to be controlled. I think that this is information that is perpetuated by people without basis. They've never come to a meeting. They haven't seen how it works. They haven't seen that the collective decides. But when somebody feels that you guys are going to control biking, I think there's that natural resistance to joining association. So it's our responsibility, I think, is to break down those barriers of misconceptions. I think that is the difficult space. The difficult space is how do you break down that? And some of the ways we have been doing it now is through our initiatives. All our initiatives are open. I think that over the last few months, I think we took on about 6 new clubs over the last 4 months. And I went back and had looked at how these clubs came back in. And it's through the experience. So we ran safety campaigns. Okay, fine. Where your riders went down. If we know there was a hot spot that a rider went down, or many riders go down, we host a safety campaign there. An awareness campaign, and we'll stay in there for 2 hours with placards, share the road, we hand out flyers, and we push the safety aspect on it. The clubs will come past it. Oh my gosh, that's really good. That's good. The MAWC is doing good work. We'll say, okay, fine. Come and take all our gazebos, take our flyers. We'll print the flyers for you. You do your one. You do your bit.
Okay.
So collectively, it's owned by everyone. So even a non-affiliated club could come to the MAWC tomorrow and say, we want all your banners, we want all your flyers, we want all your things. We want to host a safety campaign. And we'll say, sure, take it. Because it's about the collective. Similarly, we engage with the Department of Health for free first aid for our bikers. So we've come up with a first aid course that is made for bikers, that is accredited by the University of Cape Town's medical school, and as well as Stellenbosch University's medical school.
Okay.
So the bikers go there and learn on how to handle accident scenes and provide first aid treatment free of charge. And that's some of the added benefits that the MAWC does, but not only for the affiliated clubs. Again, it's for everyone.
Brilliant.
And in that way, we start drawing clubs back into the association through putting out good work there, I would say.
Because they can now see the benefit.
Absolutely.
It starts making sense.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard of something about helmets and QR codes and...
Yeah, that's after the passing of our dear brother Wanda, we launched an initiative called the Wanda Code. Obviously, for many days, we looked for Wanda. And in his death, it hit us, especially Western Cape biking, it hit us really hard. And we were sitting down with the exec and brainstorming it. Everyone was always wondering, where's Wanda? Because remember, we couldn't find him for days. And we thought, okay, fine, in honor of his death, let's leave this legacy by honoring him by creating the Wanda Code, which is a QR code. And on that QR code, you have all the power. So essentially is we give each rider 4 or 5 QR codes. And on that QR codes, you decide what information gets posted on there. So if you come down, you'll have one on the side of your helmet, one on top of your helmet, one at the back of your helmet. One in your bike, if you're riding 2 up, one for your pillion. So if the rider gets separated, paramedics can scan your QR code. To run a number plate or a license plate will take you days. To scan a QR code will be instantaneous. And you'll have, firstly, all the medical information of that person. Is he diabetic? Can he take penicillin? Is he allergic to bee stings? Blood group, everything else. It just provides that first responders, that crucial 5-10 minutes to save a life of a biker. Also we had a large problem we were facing with people posting pictures of bikers and accidents. It's really horrific.
Yeah.
And the way in which those families consumed that information. And many of these guys, we'd ask them, why are you doing this? And they would say, no, but we want to just, find the guy, get his family. And I always say this, but the way you put that picture, the guy is in a bad way, he's mangled. I think that, do not think that his mother, father, sister, brother would not want to see that. And then when we launched the Wonder Code, we said we want to put the power back into the rider. The rider then decides. So no, NK can decide. You know what? Don't send it to my wife. She's got a heart condition. You and I don't know that.
Brilliant.
So the way we're giving the information on Facebook, on Twitter, by posting it, you could onset another catastrophe within a family. So we're saying, NK, you decide how you want the information to go out to the public.
Yeah, that is
So
so
if
innovative.
exactly. So if you want your club president to be contacted first in the eventuality that there's an accident, then so be it, and as opposed to maybe your wife, just to get that support system properly, and bring it back to the clubs. So if a rider goes down, essentially, you can say, okay, fine, call my president. The president will then mobilize maybe the first lady in the club, go to his wife, go and comfort her, get the support system there, and then break the news that either is injured, this is what's happening, and then the rest of the club can sort out, the accident scene, get the bike away and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, man. I think it's so forward thinking of you guys as an association now, and I sincerely hope that it gets adopted.
No, we're definitely rolling it out further up. Yeah,
No.
definitely.
See,
Yeah.
we've also, over the years, we've tried to bring to the attention of clubs, to the attention of clubs, in terms of hospital plans, funeral benefits and stuff like that. And we're trying to push it, instead of the individual, to rather push it from the club, make it a priority in the club. Because very often we find that bikers end up in an accident only then, because they don't have medical aid or they don't have a hospital plan. They end up in general hospitals or public hospitals. And obviously in some cases, that first few hours or first few moments are very crucial to sustaining the person and for the person for recovery, it plays a big role. So, bikers, to a very large extent, in some cases, they are very negligent on themselves. If you take it, something as small as 20 Rand, or was it 10 Rand? We tried to bring in a funeral benefit for 10 Rand a month per person. And, I think up till now, regardless of how many times we try to pitch it with the clubs, they're just not coming to the party, or they don't feel it's important enough. But yet, when that unfortunate news comes and it goes to a funeral, in a lot of cases, bikers have to cough out money, or a helmet is put out, to just to bury the person, which is, it doesn't make sense. People ride bikes of 100,000, 200,000, yet stingy enough to not want to prepare themselves, like a 10 Rand a person per month, which is nothing, which could give them, what's the word I'm looking for? The peace of mind, knowing, at worst, I'll be buried. And I've taken care of it so that I don't put another burden on my family. Because, we're looking at a lot of things, and we try to make it by negotiating with what's those people that we went to see in those meetings? To try and make it as cheap as possible, because we know that, revenue and money is very, very tight, and we know, and surely 10 Rand is something that's affordable, because, I look at the guy so often, and I look at his comments when we bring those things up, and he's moaning about 10 bucks, but I look at the amount of beer he consumes and alcohol he consumes on a weekend, and I think to myself, yes, how do you justify that, And it's sad.
There's just something about bikers and and just being proactive around the biker safety space. They just don't take it seriously. I don't know why. I'm still scratching my head around it, and it's something that's been oncoming for many years. I don't know. I don't know where the answer will come from. Maybe
The sad thing. The sad thing. How many families is out there, where the father or the brother or whatever has passed away in biking, and those people, they somehow disappear in the background, and they disappear out of biking, because people that owned houses because of a sudden death, now today they don't own houses anymore. They've lost everything. There's no source of income. People having to live in windy houses, in the backyards of other people and stuff like that. So we try to encourage bikers to be proactive rather than reactive, because in a lot of cases, biking has become very reactive, and it's one of the things in the Western Cape that we're trying to push, and we do see the positive side of it. With people, with bikers, trying. Okay, we're not achieving everything. We're not perfect, but I think in terms of that kind of progress, I think there's a lot of clubs that have come to the parties. A lot of bikers have come to the parties where today, with a person being intoxicated, it's easier just because you belong to a club to take his keys away from you. But if you didn't belong to a club, that individual could be telling you whatever he wants to, with you trying to take his keys from him.
Yeah, for sure.
So people have learned to be more responsible. Yes, there are cases where people could do a little bit more just to make sure that their members get home and stuff like that. But it's a continuous learning. It's a continuous improvement. We're not perfect. We're not going to achieve everything in one go. But I think as a council and bikers of the Western Cape, I think there's a lot of effort being put in, and I think people in their own minds appreciate what has been done, even though a lot of them won't say it. But you find often that when they sit in trouble, it's the association that they come to first.
Yeah, no, for
but
sure.
yet they don't come to the meetings. They don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, sure.
But in the bigger scale of things, we haven't had a issue where it becomes us and them in terms of, when the meeting is called, when people are called to task, they come. So which means that there's enough respect amongst the bikers in and out of the association to understand what it's about. Because, when clubs are approached to do things, they don't say, but I don't belong to your association, so therefore it's not applicable to me, So with that being said, in a lot of cases, I would say that we cut ourselves short in terms of the association, and we look at the number of clubs that belongs to the association, but we forget about the collective. Because when the collectives stand together, then we accomplish a lot more. You know what I mean? So in the smaller places, in the smaller townships where we have councils,
Yeah.
when they have an issue with a club that they feel they are intimidated, or they feel that they're not getting through to a club, they very often reach out to the main structure, which is in the Western Cape, because we've got a lot more clubs there. And then obviously with that, we also give them the support. We go to those meetings, and very often, it's just a different way. And I mean, in no ways in biking do we try to force people to do anything, but we try to make them understand, looking at it from another perspective on why we're doing this, rather than telling them to do this. So it's also about educating and guiding them to understand what it's about.
You see, I think one of the biggest challenges that we've had over the years is, we've been attending a lot of, biking meetings, as you've mentioned, 8 o'clock in the evening, you leave at 10, 11, and one of the biggest challenges has always been how do we, filter down information, that we've gotten from the meetings that we've attended to the broader biking community, and I sincerely hope that this effort this podcast effort will try and fast track that process, you know what I mean, because I feel that there are so many old school bikers who are passionate about biking, who are knowledgeable about biking, and we are losing them by the day, not through fatalities, but there comes a point where a person says, you know what, I've done enough for the community, it's now time for me to take a bit of a backseat, and they just disappear, from biking with all that information and so on. So one of my biggest hopes is that through this effort, the information that I would have with people like yourselves would be able to go out there much faster, much quicker. Our hosts they already indicated that we pressed for time. I would have wanted us to go a little bit deeper, into other biking related matters. But I think as we're about to wrap up, let's talk quickly about the reasons why you are here. I think we've got about less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think just, and I don't want to come across wrong in what I'm saying or the interpretation of it. I think biking has its own type of enemies within ourselves, and I mean we become our own worst enemies. I think the most destructive thing about biking is, number one, is alcohol, our attitude, and then the speed of the bikes. And that three is a very bad combination. You know what I mean? First of all, a person that is intoxicated is difficult to reason with. And then when it's difficult to reason, we become arrogant in our own way because it's mine, I've paid for it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then that combined with speed often leads to tears. It leads to tears. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if we can sort out our differences, or not differences, but if I can do my job
Yeah.
by taking your key and preventing something, and
Yeah.
you can respect me enough to allow me to take your key,
Yeah.
then I think we've come a long way. You know what I mean?
I think that was much more, it was easier and much more doable in the old school,
Yeah.
days.
You still
with the
find
new
that,
guys.
especially today. There are people that still have problems with it, but
Yeah.
I think it's become the norm where people now just accept it that your keys will be taken off, whether
Okay.
you like it or don't like it. It doesn't matter. And then, in the bigger scale of things, when like we sit in our clubs to sort out, or in our homes, where we sort out our differences, by agreeing to disagree.
Yeah.
We're not puppets. We're not robots or stuff that we just follow each other blindly. And obviously, when we're wrong, and we expect people to say that.
Yeah.
But we do it constructively by sitting around the table to sort out these differences, and so have the councils. We all saying the same things, maybe doing it differently, but to get the same result at the end.
Yeah, sure.
So what we're trying to do is to streamline certain things across the country, so that when various clubs integrate into other provinces, that they also understand the culture there.
100%.
By showing the mutual respect, going to see the council, whether you want to belong or not, it's immaterial. But going there to introduce yourselves, I mean, you wouldn't want bikers to do things that you wouldn't want to do it. Like, when somebody comes to your house, I can't just open your door and walk in. I've obviously got to introduce myself
Yeah.
and say who I am, and, so that we can get to know each other. And then I think that mutual respect will be